Welcome, my Algebra 2 students, to Lesson 62. I decided to write the title up above, Complex Roots of Quadratic Equations, just because, I was being fancy today. So let's begin. When we solve quadratic equations by completing the square, sometimes we get really ugly looking answers, right? Let me get my pen to see if it'll work. Come on, pen. Here we go. All right. So we get some answers that look ugly like this, like x equals -3 plus or minus the square root of a -5. We don't like the negative in the square root. And we've talked before about what that actually is. We can take an imaginary number using Euler's notation. We can change that and make it a little bit prettier, a little bit easier to solve, and write it like this. We'll write -3 plus or minus the square root of 5 with an I on the end, right? And the I is not under the radical sign. It's to the right of the radical sign. So whenever you are done typing the number, you hit the space bar in your Jupyter Red system to type it to the right, not under the radical. I want to make sure that you understand that. So in this lesson, we'll complete the square to solve some quadratic equations where we end up with numbers like this. Okay, so let's start with, let me erase this. I'm not gonna, that's a little bitty one. Let me get the big one. Let's start with 62.1 right here. So we have -x plus 3x squared plus 5 equals 0. So first we have to rewrite it in the proper format. That's a square there, sorry. So the square goes first, then the x to the 1, then the x to the 0, which is just a whole number. All right, now we have it in the right format. So then we divide every term by the lead coefficient, right? We talked about that. When you have this lead coefficient, we have to get rid of it. We don't want it. So we have to divide everything by that. So this becomes 3/3. We have a 1, the invisible 1 here, over 3. And then this is over 3. So now we have x squared minus 1/3 x plus 5/3. All right, now we can begin to solve by completing the square. So now we're going to subtract this from this side because we cannot factor this at all. So it's going to be x squared minus 1/3 x equals -5/3 because we subtracted that from both sides. Now we take our x term, which is -1/3, and we're going to divide it by 2. And the way you divide a fraction by 2 is you multiply it by 1/2. So we do that first. So let's go over here somewhere. In our scratch paper, we're going to take -1/3 times 1/2, and we get -1/6, right? Then we turn around and we square that. And that gives us a 1/36. Right? That's what we add to both sides. So we say x squared minus 1/3 x plus 1/36 is equal to -5/3 plus 1/36. So now we're going to change this -5/3 into the same denominator, and that's going to be multiplied by 12. So to take -5/3, that's going to be over 36. So that's going to be 12 times -5, that's going to be -60 over 36. So that's what we're going to change that to. So let's just do this. Since I can erase on here, it's a lot easier. So -60 over 36. So now when we add these together, we get -59 over 36. All right, so we'll just substitute this with that when we move it around. All right, So now we have, because we squared, we need to find the factor here. That's what we want to do, is find the factor. So we factored out, we made it a perfect square. That's why we squared this. Now we can say x minus 1 over 6, because that was what we used here. That's what we squared. So that becomes our square. And then this is our negative 59 over 36. Now we're going to move this up a little bit. We're going to unsquare it. So this becomes x minus 1/6 equals the square root of, plus or minus, negative 59, and the square root of 36 is 6, so we're just going to put that over 6. All right, we are going to move this over here because I'm running out of room. Actually, no, we're not. We're just going to keep going down because I can. Let's just keep rolling it down. It's a different kind of paper, but that's okay. So now we're going to add 1/6 to both sides. So we have x is equal to 1/6 plus or minus the square root of 59 over 6. And we are going to, notice I didn't put the negative in because we're going to take that and put that I right here on the outside. And that would be your final solution for this problem. Okay? Awesome. All right, so now let's do 62.2 the same way. So let me clear this page. 62.2. It's just a lot of steps. It really is. I can't wait until we learn how to do the quadratic formula so that you guys can solve these faster. Y'all remember those, right? From last year, the quadratic formula. So much faster. All right, so this one is negative 2x plus 5x squared equals a negative 3. I'm going to let you try to solve this one on your own. So press pause, solve it, and then come back and compare your answer by pressing play. All right, chickadees, if you got x equals 1/5 plus or minus the square root of 14 over 5 times I, then you got the right answer. So let's walk through it. So first and foremost, we had to write it in descending order. Now listen, the negative 3 was already over here. I see no point in bringing it back and then moving it back over. So I just left it where it was. We're going to have to move it over anyway, right? So then we took this lead coefficient, we divided everything by 5, and then we wrote it in its, in its answer from there after the division was completed. So now we take this negative 2/5 and we divide it by 2, and we do that by multiplying it by 1/2, and we get negative 2 over 10. Now, if you can reduce a fraction while you are in the process, do so, because it's going to make your life easier. So we reduced negative 2/10 to negative 1/5. Then we squared that, and we got 1 over 25. So we added 1 over 25 to both sides, okay? When we multiplied this to get a denominator of 25, we got negative 15 plus 1 gave us negative 14 over 25. We were able to factor this into x minus 1/5 squared, which let us unsquare and have x minus 1/5 equals plus or minus the square root of negative 14 over, and we squared the 25, so that was 5. So we took the square away. We went ahead and squared it because it was easy. Or we found the square root because it was easy for that one. So then the only thing we had to do was take this negative 1/5 and add it to both sides so we could solve for x by itself, which left us with 1/5 plus or minus the square root of 14, and it was a negative 14. We took that negative out and we put that over left that over the 5 and put that I here. So taking the negative again out of the radical, we do that by adding this I over here on the side. So this should have been what you came up with. If you did not, pause the video and go back and look at each of these steps to see where maybe you maybe you dropped a negative sign or a positive sign. Maybe you didn't square it correctly. Maybe you didn't reduce, and that is what made it look different. Go back and check your work if you did not get this answer. All right, moving on for the rest of us. Let's see if we have another. We do not. That's it. That is our last problem for lesson 62. So I will see you in lesson 63. And guess what? Lesson 64 is the last lesson for this semester. So you are only 2 lessons away. I know what you're thinking. It's okay. You can feel that way. I give you permission. All right. See you in lesson 63.